Hey, hey, hey. Hey, hey, hey. Hi, Mary, Mary, Mary. Yay, Mary. Yes, you're here. Yes, you're here and I'm here. We caught each other. Yay, yippee. Woohoo, yeah. Got a couple of short stories, scary ones, okay? Let's do this. I got a new book tonight. See if any of them are any good, okay? This one's called Teeth. Teeth. Yee. By Joseph C. Giaconda. We got 1 minute. 1 minute until 3:30. And then we'll start. Now where's everybody going? Come back, people. Come on. Don't be afraid. Might be just me and you, Mary. Garnet, what are you doing? She's running around here like crazy trying to climb up on the cupboard. Okay. Hey, Tracy B., you're here. You both have your own storyteller. Okay, get ready for bed and lay down and listen, Tracy. Don't leave. We've only got 2 here tonight. Wouldn't miss it. All right, girl. Okay, let me put my holder on. See? There we go. Okay, it's called Teeth. Where did you say you got this? You got this skull? The owner of the antique shop stretched a blue latex glove over the fingers of his right hand. He wiped his thin, graying hair over his balding forehead and adjusted his thick eyeglasses. The dealer specialized in macabre items and had developed a large inventory and robust following of collectors. Most of the items consisted of Victorian mourning items, urns containing cremated remains, and curious funerary objects. Funeral. eBay. This was back in the 90s when they still let us buy and sell human body parts online. The tall, muscular man leaned on the glass counter. Med school students bought them for anatomy projects or whatever. I'm not used to reading out loud now. I feel weird. Garnet, and plus what are you doing, girl? Calm down. Got to get back into the spin. Yeah, body parts. Can you imagine? Oh. Right, the shop owner said, gingerly picking up the human cranium to examine it. Are you a doctor or something? No, the tall man said. I had a fleeting interest in those kinds of dark things back then. The shop owner looked up at the man. Sorry, Garnet's distracting. Okay, let's see. The shop owner looked up at the man and back to the skull he now held in his hand. The lower jaw was unattached and stayed in the box. Upper teeth look really good, he said, holding the skull up to the light. Mandibles intact, too. Yeah, it's a great specimen. How much did you pay for it? The shop owner asked him. Let me look. The tall man pulled a double folded piece of paper out of the brown tattered cardboard box. Looks like I paid $850 back in 99. Can I see that printout? No, I'd rather not. The man shoved it into his front jeans pocket. Why is that? I just like to keep my eBay screen name and details private. Sorry. Well, from what I can tell, and I'm certainly no expert, this looks like it might be a young woman's skull. Good eye, the tall man said. That's that's what it said in the listing. Probably in her mid-20s based on the size of the eye sockets, said the dealer. It's been bleached, he continued, turning it around to look at the back of the head. What do you mean? Whenever bones are preserved for any kind of medical use, the taxidermist manually strips off the raw flesh, whatever meat and skin is hanging off. They scrape out the eyeballs and try to remove the brain material that's stuck in there. Then they let the bone sit in acid for a while, sometimes a few days to a week. That gets the rest of the flesh to putrefy to liquid. After that, bone is usually yellow. To get it whiter, they let it sit and bleach for a while. It's just aesthetic. Collectors like to display white bones, not yellow. I see, the man said. Ups the value a bit, but it makes it a little harder to visually date. I can't tell how old this one is. It must be modern because the back teeth have fillings in them. See? The dealer used his pinky finger to point at the top molars, which had silver and ceramic treatments still compressed inside. Could someone figure out how old it is by carbon dating the bone or whatever they call it? Look at dental records. I know, it is, isn't it, Mary? Look at dental records? Sure, but that's pretty expensive, said the dealer. Police wouldn't typically do that with some random modern skull bought off of eBay. Most are just from India. India? Why is that? The man asked. Skeleton farms there. What? International treaty from way back. All legal human skeletons must come from India. But anyway, I doubt this one is from there. Why is that? The man asked. The structure of the skull doesn't look Indian, and like I said, the fillings are modern. Ceramic and mercury fillings aren't typical in India. Aren't typical in India. At least among the castes whose bones get exported. No, I'm guessing this girl was American, maybe South American, Brazilian. Hard to say. The real oddity is that her noggin ended up being sold on eBay. Where did this shipment come from? Original box had no return address. I don't remember the post office date or location stamp. I threw it out 10 years ago. Anyway, do we have a deal or not? What do you want for her? For her? Just what I paid, $850. No profit? No, I just want to be rid of it. Why is that? My new girlfriend doesn't like it hanging around the apartment. I used to keep it in a glass case on my Xbox. She thought that was too creepy. So about 2 years ago, I put it in a storage locker. But I was afraid the heat might do damage, and I could use the extra cash to buy an engagement ring for her. I see. So, do we have a deal? Yeah, that price seems fair. The dealer carefully placed the skull back in the box on the newspapers. I'll write up a receipt. No, that's okay. I prefer to just take the cash. Well, I have to put something in the file. It's the law. We're talking about a human head here. Sure. Name's John. Okay, John. Last name? Jones. John Jones? The dealer looked up at the man skeptically. Right. Okay, John Jones. Are large bills okay? The antique dealer opened the cash register and peeled out 8 $100 bills and a 50. Yes, perfect. He put the money in his wallet. So let me ask you this. What are you going to do with it? I have a roster of collectors. Frankly, I'll tag it for 1,000 and negotiate. Probably only make a small profit on it. What do your buyers do with them? Light them up on Halloween or something? The man asked. Well, some do. The woman I have in mind to buy this one actually does psychic readings on them. What do you mean? She's a psychic or medium or whatever. Or she thinks she is anyway. She'll do a seance or something to try to see if there's are any spirit attachments. Why? I guess she wants to try to see who said it was. I don't really know. Maybe get it to talk. She records voices on a digital recorder. It's called EVPs, electronic voice phenomena. Pretty creepy stuff, actually. Does it ever work? The man asked. Does what work? Does she ever really uncover who the skull belonged to? She must think so. She has a lot of them. I think one time she solved a cold case that way. Voice gave her the name of the killer, I think. Can I ask a favor? The man asked. What is it? The dealer asked him curiously. Here's my cell number. He scribbled a telephone number with a Texas area code on a scrap of paper. If you hear back from her, and if she comes up with a theory of whose skull it was, can you tell me? Interested in what she finds out? You could say that. And please, ask her not to broadcast it publicly before you tell me. Why's that? Just ask her, please, okay? Sure, said the dealer. One last thing. Let me take back the cardboard box it's in. Oh, I was going to use that for storage until my collector comes in to pick it up. Don't you have another box? Maybe. Let me look. The dealer looked around for a sturdier box. He took the skull out and placed it in a wooden one. There you go. You can have it back. The man took back the cardboard box and pulled out the old newspapers. Here, you can actually throw out my old one. I just wanted the padding out of it. The dealer didn't notice that the skull's teeth looked a lot like the smiling girl's photos in the crumpled up newspapers in the man's hand. Oh, did you get that? He's the killer. He was the killer. Billy Boy Blue, you're still up. You missed a good story. That was creepy, huh? You should rewind that, Billy Boy, for real. It's creepy. Okay, this one's called Jump by Grace Elizabeth. His therapist told him to jump at every opportunity. Vince had been staring at the wall for hours. The white of the wall merged with the red of the blood that covered the foot of his bed. His arms ached, but didn't sting. The dull ache, which reverberated down his limbs, was simply in his mind. It no longer hurt. The sensation of cutting himself used to be something he would wince at, flinch as the knife pierced his skin, but now he felt nothing. And as he drew the knife back up his arm, watching the small beads of blood form like fine wine, he couldn't help but laugh. Who was he becoming? He stared at the smashed glass on the floor. The voices had told him to do it. They were antagonizing, and he could only ignore them for so long. Every scream he heard, every giggle which echoed throughout his mind, was a reminder that he wasn't normal. He wasn't like everyone else, and he never would be again. The voices dominated him completely, engulfed his personality, his desires, his deepest thoughts. And there wasn't a single thing he could do about it. He just had to sit there and wait for it to pass. Every time he picked up the knife and put the blade to his skin, it felt like a release. Every time he made a new incision, he felt as if he was silencing the voices for just a moment. For a few blissful seconds, it was silent. He heard nothing but the sound of his own breathing. And in those rare moments, he focused on the beating of his heart, the feeling of blood pumping through his frail veins, reminding himself that he was okay. Of course, none of it was true. These pointless affirmations he gave himself were just to keep him away from the edge, to keep him as far from the edge of S unaliving as possible. But he couldn't help but admit that every time he looked at a knife or a blade or a fork or a sharp surface, he fantasized about plunging it into himself, about ending his life. He had always thought people cowards for committing suicide until he was 16. That was when he first attempted it. He remembered holding the bottle of pills, the sound of them rattling against the sides of the bottle as his hands, trembling uncontrollably, beckoned him to take them, to swallow every morsel of the contents. He ached to feel the cold of the water force them down his throat, feel it land in his stomach, and the voices praise him. I know, right, Billy Boy? It is. um, yeah, this is a new book I just bought tonight. It's got some dark stuff. Let's see. And the voices praise him, say things like good and well done. Their praise was all that mattered to him. It was everything he strived for. He had lost his family, lost his job, lost himself. This was all he had left. He had tried to speak to someone about it. Countless therapists and counselors had tried to help him. Each one had given him the same useless advice. Over and over, he would be given the same checklist. Number 1, go for a walk, get some fresh air. Number 2, drink some tea. It soothes the soul. And number 3, write it all down in a journal. But you see, he had no need to write it all down in a book. That would be more permanent than his life. That would be more consistent than the things echoing through his head. He had no need to go for a walk. If he did, he might just end up walking off the edge of a cliff or over the top of a bridge. He had no need to drink tea when he could drink bourbon or whiskey. But both burnt his throat, both soothed his soul. Here, I gotta get a sip. Hey, Taco, you're still up too. Reading some dark stories. But this was so much easier to handle when he blacked out on the floor of his bathroom in a pool of his own blood. Nobody would understand. The voices told him that every day, repeated they were there for him, laughed and mocked him as he broke down on the floor. His tears were the only part of him that felt human anymore. He felt like he had leaked every ounce of blood from his body. Every morsel of happiness had disintegrated when these voices took over, when these voices decided it was their life, not his. Vince knew that he had committed some awful crimes in his lifetime. He had hurt people. Now, wait a minute. I already bought this. Oh, wait. Oh, I thought I bought it. It was just a sample. I had to click on the buy it. Okay. I gotta go there now. Gotta go to my Kindle. Sorry. Thought I had it already. Okay, let's see. I gotta get right to that story we were at. Ah, hold on, guys. Sorry. Okay, okay. I hope it's here now. Yes, go to page 11 or whatever it was. Nope, that's not it. Trying to get there, guys. Hold on. Okay, now I found it. Okay. Let's see. Okay, the bottle of pills, the 3 things he does. Vince knew that he had committed some awful crimes in his lifetime. He had hurt people purely because the voices which rattled in his head had begged him to. They never found the body of the first person he murdered, and they never would. He had hidden him too well. The voices had told him how to do it. They had guided him through one of the most difficult moments of his life. As horrific as they were, they comforted him more than they scared him. He had first seen the jogger while out on a walk. His therapist had told him that he should focus more on the nature around him, and so he did. He went walking in a forest, which was the most tranquil place he had ever seen. It was full of woodland creatures and the most beautiful plants. Upon the rise of the sun, the forest was covered in a blanket of white. It had a majestic aura that begged the lost souls of those who wandered the icy woods to stop just for a moment and embrace the feeling of tranquility. The frozen lake met the winter sun with such grace as if the two of them were so enchanted by the serenity of the cool winter day that they barely noticed the chilling air. The river appeared still, yet she flowed under the thinnest of ice, awaiting the brutally gentle touch of the sun, though the air barely bared only the coldness and the ground was frozen over. Taco. They glittered with the gift of each individual shining ray. It was almost as if a higher power ensured there would be hope, even on the deepest and most dreary of days, asking us to see the sparks that remain, even when the world around us was frozen. It was bitterly cold, but somehow the rays of the sun warmed the cheeks of those who entered the forest. It was an enchanting combination. Let's see. It was the type of place you would feel completely and utterly safe, where nothing could harm you. There was no anger or malice in the forest, just captivating beauty and frivolous happiness. So you guys meeting up tonight, Billy and Taco? Let's see. I'm not liking this one too much. I'm fast forwarding. The good memories you held would seem extraordinary, and the rather terrible ones wouldn't seem so bad at all. The forest seemed magical, a truly captivating and enchanting haven. He looked around, and that was when he saw him. That was when the voices started whispering to him, telling him to hurt the jogger for what he had done to the world. What he did was simple. He wasn't a big man. He simply gripped the back of his head and slammed it into the tree until he fell limp in his arms. Just to make sure he would never hurt another person again, he did something that would ensure his death. Billy Boy Blue. Um, he dumped the lifeless corpse into his car and began to drive. He couldn't tell if the sound that filled his car, was with the sound of the jogger choking or the voices in his head, and he didn't care. He did what he had to do. He had done the right thing. At least that was what the voices kept telling him. He took the man's body and buried it in a deep hole in the middle of the woods. But that simply wasn't enough. He needed to do more. He needed to cover his tracks. He found a cat roaming the streets that night and petted it slowly. He then took a rock and bashed its head in, smiling as he did as the voices praised him and reassured him that everything would be okay as long as he listened to them. I smashed the cat's head in. He filled the hole halfway with dirt and then threw the cat's corpse on top of it. If the sniffer dogs found any trace of the jogger's body, then he would simply assume that it was the rotting cat causing such a stench. That's kind of smart. It's kind of smart, isn't it? Have to remember that. Hey, cats. I know, cat. Smashed head in with a rock. I know, it's horrible. Sorry. You would come right then, too, huh? He's a jerk. More than a jerk, he's a murderer. Let's see. He got home and slept like nothing had happened. As the days went by, guilt started to creep into him. It visited him in his dreams and forced him awake screaming. But at the end of the day, his voices were always there to reassure him. At least that's what he thought. Cats. Cross-eyed Betty. Cross-eyed Betty. Paging cross-eyed Betty. Paging Dingbat. Paging Dingbat. We just have us a cozy little reading corner here tonight. 5 brave people listening. 5 brave people out of billions on YouTube. You guys are the 5 bravest. You're all brave. Brave, brave, brave. Be proud of that. Other voices started to creep in, new voices that he hadn't heard before, telling him he was bad for what he did and muttering vile things to him as he tried to fall asleep. The guilt consumed him. The next month, he went back to the spot and started to dig. He dug holes all over the forest, searching for the dead body just to find him, just to try and bring him back. He finally found him, and he had practically rotted away. Mold and moss lined each part of his body, and his skin was discolored. He hadn't known what rotting flesh smelt like until that night. He threw up over the body and threw it back in the hole from which he had dragged it. He hadn't been the same since that night. The voices had egged him on, and he had started to kill more. They never figured out it was him. So as Vince stared at himself in the mirror, he didn't see the bright boy that had won the chemistry award last year. He saw a shattered pane of glass. As he slipped on his shoes, he was aware of the way they felt grazing against the skin of his feet. As he pulled his jacket over his arms, he relished the feeling of the cold material on his warm, bleeding arms. And he stepped out of his door. He could no longer feel the cold. He could only feel the warmth of the crimson. Hey, Jenny D, 1? Yes. Aw, thank you, Billy Boy Blue. That's so sweet of you. Thank you. I like that. Winding down with Scooter. Good. Thank you so much. And you're one of the brave ones. Remember, you guys, we got 6 brave people out of billions on YouTube listening to these stories right now. Shows you guys are the very bravest. The other ones are too scared. I know, cat's got my tongue. I know. We got 8. Oh, they left. See, they're too scared. Okay. Thank you so much. Whisper, I was just going to say, where are you? I've been wondering where you were. I missed you. So glad you're here. Glad you're here. Okay, he stepped from his door to the path and watched the cars go past, the people in them controlling their own thoughts, their own minds, their own desires. He got to his place, a place his father had taken him when he was young. He sat atop the bridge and stared down at the river, wondering what would happen if he just let himself fall, just let himself hit the water. Would everything be okay again? Would the voices finally leave him alone? As he threw himself down, he smiled. After all, his therapist had told him to jump at every opportunity. Good, we're glad you're back, whisper to me. Okay, and then we'll read one more called Identity by Joseph C. Giaconda again. Wait, are you telling me you are possessed or something? It's complicated, that's all. What's complicated? Hank laughed. I'm brave, but still not brave enough to leave the house without a bra on. Just kidding. I am not brave. I'm a. Oh, that's funny. What's complicated? Hank laughed. Amanda, you just told me that there's another person living inside you. I didn't say it that way. You just said there's a girl named Alyssa hiding in your body. Never leave without support. Hank, I love you. Please sit down and let me explain. God, please do. Billy boy. He sat down on the bed in Amanda's bedroom. Her apartment was normal. There was nothing to evidence the bizarre story she was relating. They'd been dating for 6 months now, and she had been a perfectly pleasant and stable girlfriend. However, one night, the couple had gotten a little drunk at a party, and Amanda started spilling the beans on her family background, a history that he found difficult to believe. Back when I was younger, I was abused badly. You know that. She took his hands in hers. Yeah, I know you had some terrible things happen. I don't really know the specifics, Hank said. I don't know if I want to know the full extent of it. After I turned 19, my parents joined a cult. Like a satanic cult? Hank asked. No, a religious group. Not like devil worship, just a weird church. Anyway, I was abused by the leader of this group. A lot. Jesus, Hank said. I'm so sorry. I always knew something wasn't right about your family. No offense. That's when Alyssa came out. What do you mean? Can I show you? Amanda asked. Show me what? Alyssa. What? Hank laughed out loud. I'm going to bring her out, okay? You should see it happen if you are going to be my boyfriend. Um, okay, Hank said nervously, not having a clue what was about to happen. All right, Amanda said, closing her eyes and starting to wince like she was in pain, squeezing his hands. Honey, are you okay? He asked. Billy Boy Blue. She moved her head and neck in torment. Her eyes twitched, and her mouth drew up in a strange grimace. Amanda, I said, are you okay? Hi there, I'm Alyssa. She looked up at him, speaking seductively and hoarsely. Hi there, I'm Alyssa. You must be this Hank I keep hearing all about. She told me all about you. Her eyes became black as pools of ink, yet Amanda had bright blue eyes. Hank laughed. Great acting, Amanda, I must say. You really should be an actress. Did you just put in contact lenses? How did you do that to your eyes? Oh, I'm not Amanda. I told you. I'm Alyssa. And boy, she knows how to pick 'em. You're a good looking man. I'm going to have some fun with you. She pinched his chin playfully. What the hell? He said. Okay, this is getting creepy. Knock it off. Oh, once I'm out to play, I can't just go away. I need to have some fun first. Maybe after a while, she can get me to leave again, but not quite yet. I don't know. There is no rating, whispered to me. I was just wondering. Oh, this is sick, Amanda. Please stop. I told you, this isn't a joke. You wanted to meet me. Now you have. This is crazy. I can't take it. What's this all about? Amanda couldn't handle what they did to her. That's why I had to come around. See, I can handle it. Weak Amanda couldn't. I'm here to protect her from all the bad things. She is too fragile and prissy to take it. But I can, whispered. Hank just silently stared in disbelief. You see, she loves you. I have no idea why. I mean, you're good looking and all, but I prefer my men a little stronger. I'm a very different woman than your little Amanda. When I'm out, she doesn't even know what I'm up to. She'll go crawl in a corner inside of us and hide. Meanwhile, I'll go out and do things that she would never do, evil things, and they'll never catch me. Okay, this twisted little game is over. I'm leaving. He stood up to march out the door. Fine, fine. I'll go back inside her. Not sure why she brought me out to play anyway, but just know I'm always around if you need me. And you will. You won't always be satisfied with Amanda. You will need me. He guys are hilarious. Alyssa closed her eyes and cringed. A single tear welled up in her eye and rolled down her cheek. When she opened them, they were as blue as the sky again. Blue as the sky again. Please give me a hug, Hank. Hold me. Amanda? Yes, it's me. I needed you to see me switch. So now you know all of me. The end. That one that ends like that. I'll read one more called Alone. It's by the same author, Joseph C. Giaconda. We got an old cot in the waiting room, the mortician told me. You can sleep in there tonight. It's not very comfortable, but it'll do. Everything smelled of mothballs and formaldehyde. When my father, brothers, and I had arrived at the funeral home in the rental car, we found a 3-room shack in the middle of the desert. The closest town was 2 miles away and consisted of one pump gas station, a post office, and a bank that was open a few hours a week. The closest bona fide town with a motel was over 20 miles away. In between there and the funeral home, I didn't see a single house. Yeah, that was it. Isn't that dumb? Now we're on another story. This is a funeral home, like out in the middle of a desert. In between there and the funeral home, I didn't see a single house, not one. In fact, I'm not even sure I saw a passing motorist, just cactus after cactus and an empty highway. We had flown to Phoenix from New York and then made the 4-hour drive deep into the desert to this local facility that was handling my Uncle Tim's autopsy and burial. I hadn't known my uncle that well. He had moved to Arizona when I was a teenager. He was my father's brother, but they weren't all that close either. Tim's wife passed away last year, so we were literally his last surviving family. The now deceased couple never had any kids, and Eleanor's family was unknown to us. Tim was being buried in the Veterans Cemetery up in Flagstaff. My mother wasn't in the best health to travel, so she stayed back home. This was really Dad's responsibility, but we didn't want him to deal with it alone. You know, we could only get, we could only get one room at the motel, Mike, my father said, and it only has 2 singles. Your older brother is sleeping in a cot, too. Yeah, but he's sharing a motel room with you guys, not spending the night in a funeral home alone. I'm literally going to be miles away from anyone until morning. Oh, stop being a baby. It's not like there'll be anyone to bother you, my father said. Then you sleep in here, I said, not joking. I couldn't believe my family was seriously forcing me to sleep by myself in a funeral parlor occupied by more corpses than living people. I wouldn't have access to transportation. Billy Boy. Let's see. Keep losing my spot. I wouldn't have access to transportation, so if I wanted to leave in the middle of the night, I couldn't. I truly would be trapped. Miles and miles of wasteland separated me from other living people. I'll close this door to the embalming room, the funeral director said to me, pulling it shut. It doesn't lock. There are 3 bodies back there. your uncles, and 2 others. But don't worry, I'll be back at first light to finish the autopsy and prepare him for burial. He flipped open the raw cot and handed me an uncomfortable pillow and folded polyester sheets. Miles Wasteland, yeah, could be. Let's see. This is all I have for your bedding, but the waiting room couch pillows could do in a pinch. I tried to look brave. Sure, I'll be fine. Just point me to the bathroom, I said stoically. It's over there. He pointed to a tiny powder room next to the embalming room. No shower, unfortunately. He turned off the bathroom light. I hung my black suit on the bathroom door. It dangled like a hanged man in a noose. See you in the morning, Mike, my father said, closing the outer door behind him and walking to the rental car with my 2 brothers. I was now totally alone in the silent building. Now that is so dumb. Why can't he at least just sleep on the floor in the hotel or sleep in the rental car? No way I'd be staying in that place. This was back before iPhones or iPads. I had absolutely nothing to do except sit in the waiting room in complete silence. I didn't even have a radio, although I doubt the airwaves reached this spot. The only reading materials were old, dated magazines, only 9 p.m. So I had a good 10 hours to go before my family and the funeral director would be back. It was getting dark, and I dreaded the many silent hours ahead of me. I cursed my family for leaving me here. Right now, my father and brothers were driving toward a comfortable motel where they'd watch cable television, drink cold beer, and maybe go out and get dinner at a drive-through McDonald's. Instead, I was trapped here in the middle of desolation. I couldn't believe I didn't stand up for myself. If I had rented my own car, I could have at least figured out some alternative. I might have driven down from the airport in the early morning before the funeral, maybe, or even slept in the airport parking garage or in a tent on the side of the road. Hell, that would be better than this solitude. The howling coyotes would at least be a sound. Instead, cold silence. My mind started to drift to what was on the other side of that unlocked door. It was a cheap, hollow one, the kind that a strong push could break through. That was probably why the funeral director never bothered to install a lock on it. What was the point? With an interior door that flimsy, an average-sized person could push right through the hollow wood. The exterior door didn't look much sturdier, but at least it had a lock. I sat and stared at the interior door. I thought about my Uncle Tim's body in the refrigerator on the other side of it. It was only about 12 feet away from me, 6 feet on this side of the door, and probably 6 feet on the other. From the glimpse I caught of it earlier, the embalming room was small. And who did the other 2 bodies belong to? There couldn't be many people living in this part of the desert, much less 3 people dying within a few days of each other that would need to be temporarily stored here. That seems suspicious now that I thought about it. And why did the funeral director even mention other bodies? I tried to put these jarring thoughts out of my mind. They were only making me more uneasy. I started mulling over my options in the case of an emergency. I hadn't noticed a landline telephone. Then again, what emergency could possibly happen in the next few hours? I just needed to fall asleep. Before I knew it, it would be dawn and the mortician would be back. I never thought that I would be happy to see one. I tossed and turned on the uncomfortable old cot that smelled like mothballs. The metal bar in the middle was hurting my back. I thought about switching to the couch, but its covers looked even scratchier and more uncomfortable than the sheets on the cot. I thought of happier times. When I got back to New York, I would go out for a night of binge drinking. That would be fun. A nightclub club filled with girls and booze and loud music. Just then, I heard something in the embalming room move. The end. Oh, isn't that stupid? It ends right there. He heard something in the embalming room move. The end. That'll be the end for us, too. Thanks, guys, for coming to our little scary reading nook. Oh, hi, Meg. Didn't see you. Nice to see you drop by. Okay, y'all. Thank you for dropping in. I know these endings they just come like that out of nowhere, don't they? Well, we've got quite a few more. Thank you for coming. Thank you, guys. Sweet dreams.